Ciao ragazzi.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just to inform you that we already started our seminar, so we are already online. Maybe if I kindly ask you to mute your microphone just to be sure that there is not this echo. And welcome also to all the people that are already watching. Yep, perfect. Okay, now it's perfect. So welcome again. I think everything now is set. We are ready to start. Sorry, 5 minutes late, and but all our guests are now here. So a warm welcome to all of you. I have the pleasure to welcome you and start this international seminar, Making Integration Through Sport, that is part of the Simcast project. The project is led by US Likely with the collaboration with many partners that we will have at the time then to go through the project during the seminar. So for the moment, I just want to let you know that this seminar is part of the Erasmus Days and also part of the Meet Me Tonight, that is an international project led by the University of Milan, in which the University of Cassino and Sadro Lazio that I represent is part of. My name is Simone Di Gennaro. I will be the chair for this seminar. So I will be a little bit the master of ceremony. So I will help our guests to present. And also I will try to interact with our audience. For people who are following from home or from the work, I don't know from where, there is the opportunity to interact. So please use the chat of your device and to make comments and also to ask questions if you want, and also to interact with our guests. As you can see, the agenda is really rich. So we have already our first four presenter speakers here on the stream. So I will give immediately the floor to Damiano Lembo, who is the president of US Likely, one of the most important sport for all organization in Italy, that he will welcome us and he will open the seminar. After that, we will have a Cristiano Caltabiano from IREF, who will present some of the most relevant results of the Simcast project. This is for the moment, then I will let you know later what the agenda will look like and who will be the speaker that will present. So Damiano, the floor is yours. You can open your microphone, and it is our pleasure to have you here.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. Today's event is the first public event of Simcast, a European project supported by the Erasmus Plus Sport Program, which started in January 2020 and will run until December 2021. An intervention that aims to promote the integration of immigrants to sport in critical areas. That is, in those contexts characterized by situation of particular disintegration and social hardship, such as prisons, disadvantaged neighborhoods, refugee camps, which make the processes of growth, personal affirmation, and social inclusion even more difficult. Sport can do a lot in this context if used and lived in the right way, and in this context, sport operators, educators have a decisive role. That's why Simcast has an ambitious goal to define an intervention methodology able to support sports operators and managers in planning intervention for the integration of immigrants in critical areas, which are effective and sustainable over time. I would like to thank the partners that together with the OSCE are developing the project. the University of Cassino, IREF, Research and Training Institute of Acre, and the 5 no-profit organizations active programs of social inclusion of immigrants through sport in their countries. Girl Power, Denmark, Champions Without Border, Germany, Organization Earth, Greece, Sport Union of Slovenia, and the Sport Council of Pla del Este, Spain. In these first months, it has already become clear how the significant and different skills, experience, and geographical location of these subjects can represent the real resource for the achievement and dissemination of the set of results. During today's seminars, IREF will present and underpin, thanks to the contribution of experts and academics, which I thank and greet, the first of the results of Simcast research on immigrants' social inclusion through sport, which will serve in the next months to define the methodological approach that will be tested and evaluated in the field and then disseminated through training tools. I thank the IREF that carried out the research with the support of University of Cassino and the contribution of the other partners. The University of Cassino for having contributed to the organization and realization of the event. In particular, I greet the attending students. All those who have contributed in recent months to research, some of whom are here today. I wishing you a good job. I invite you to continue to follow the project through the dedicated website, simcast.eu. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Damiano. If you can mute the microphone now. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for this welcome message. I think it's important to underline that Simcast is an EU project that is involving sport organization, university, NGO, coming from 5 different countries in Europe. So Spain, Greece, Germany, Denmark, and Italy are represented in this project. So it's a very ambitious project and focusing on a very interesting topic. Because the idea that you use sport to include people in critical area is very interesting and to some extent innovative. But we will have now the time to go deeper, to get more details about the project, and also to get a flavor of the most important outcomes and results that are already available from the project, thanks to the presentation of Cristiano Caltabiano. The title of his presentation is An Action Research to Support Sport Professionals. And so I guess that Cristiano will provide some insights about the project, also some insights about the most important results that are already available. Cristiano, the floor is yours. I know that perhaps there are some technical problems with the presentation, so maybe you can try to share your presentation. Otherwise, I will try to help you. Just let me know. And you can unmute your microphone and you can start talking whenever you want.
Thank you, Simone. I have some problems. I'm trying to share the screen, but it doesn't work. Let me try another. I have another trial. Hi, everybody. Let's see if now it works. Do you see the presentation? Oh, I don't know. It's let me put it inside. It's outside the box in the broadcasting. Do you hear me, Simone?
Yes, we hear you perfectly, but we don't see the presentation. So maybe I can help you with the presentation.
Because it's outside the box, the broadcasting box. but it
Oh.
doesn't go inside.
Let me see.
I don't know. Maybe because it says edit name. Maybe I must put the name. Let me try to put it inside. Okay. Maybe I'm not.
And then you have to put it on the stream. Otherwise, I will help you.
Yeah. Please, if you can help me, it would be better because it doesn't go in the screen.
Okay, just wait. Okay, here we are. Can you see the presentation?
It doesn't work from my.
Okay, I think here we are. Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, I see it. Okay.
Okay, so just let me know when I have to move to the next slide.
Okay, you can go on. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
But okay. Good morning, everybody. Let me first speak about the vision of the Simcast project, which is to, first of all, increase the skills of sport professionals and to develop practices that can promote refugees and migrant inclusion in our society, in our societies. How we do this how we try to pursue this goal by collecting evidence in order to enhance the function of sport in integration processes. This is a fundamental aim of the project. And then we want to find some enabling factors that make sport programs really inclusive in critical areas. The Simcast project is being carried on in disadvantaged neighborhood, refugee camps, and prisons. These are our critical areas. We are looking at the setting in which we are looking at migrant integration through sport inclusive practices. Okay, the next one. Thank you, Simone. So. It's only a joke. In the Simcast project, we are not carrying out, as I put inside this slide, academic research. We stand on the shoulder of giants, of Kurt Lewin action research models. Okay, there's obviously been a lot of literature about this, but our inspiration is action research. That is based on action, evaluation, and critical analysis through research in order to detect practices, improve practices. Such a research focuses also on specific situation and their context. As you see here, I made the, okay, thank you. So how this is a picture in which we show how we are conducting action research inside the Simcast project. You have the first two circles on the left, and you see the tasks and outputs in italics of our project. In the first two circles, which we have already carried on, we made first of all a bibliographical analysis, and we had a working paper. And also after an article published on our scientific review, and a stakeholder interview survey with the product. The final product is a research report. These first two outputs are already done. Okay, so today I will leave the floor to Luca and Michele, which will speak about the main findings of these two first steps of our projects. Then, as you see in the middle circle, we are conducting desk case studies on best local practices. Also, in this case, we will have a research report. And then this kind of research is not, as I said before, academic research. We are making action research. We want to pursue some goals and have some practical activities in our project. First of all, we will develop a methodological approach. At the beginning, together with the University of Cassino and Simone, and we will try to develop some guidelines and toolkits and sustainability analysis reports for people working in this field, okay, which are grassroots sport organizations involved in inclusive programs for migrants and refugees across 6 countries. Okay, the project has been carried on in 6 countries, not only in Italy, but in Germany, in Denmark, in Slovenia, in Greece, and then I have some other countries I'm leaving out. Maybe there's one country more. Okay, but we are in 6 countries.
Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 600: Greece, Spain, Germany, Denmark, Italy, and Slovenia.
In Slovenia, okay. At the then after this, we will have developed this kind of toolkits, sustainability analysis reports, and the guidelines. We will implement them inside the organization, in the network of organizations that are involved in the project in the 6 countries. And at the end, we will have national reports. And through these national reports, we will have feedbacks, and at the end, we will have the final version of guidelines, toolkits, and sustainability reports. Okay, so this is our kind of general framework we are moving in, and we are bridging together research and action. Let's say this is action research. Okay. Next slide. Thank you, Simone. So let me speak about the first step, the bibliographical analysis. The issue was, okay, let's look inside scientific literature, sociology of sport, social psychology, and training and education, okay, and see how they are what is emerging from the most important analysis in these fields, in these sectors, scientific sectors. To what extent this is the issue of the bibliographical analysis? To what extent and under what condition can sport contribute to the integration of migrants and refugees into our societies? Okay, maybe the next one. Thank you, Simone. So this kind of bibliographical analysis was a semi-systematic review with an algorithm. Michele and Luca developed this kind of algorithm. You can see it inside with some keywords and comments we put inside some very important database, scientific research database. To make it simple, this string query online research database, which was EBCCO Web of Sciences, identifying bibliographical records. So article, books, working papers, which deal with this kind of topics. This was the first step. But it was a semi-systematic review. We show in the next slide, because we were also using complementary search sources. like search by specialized journals, cross-references, expert consulting, and previous literature reviews. Okay. At the end of this process, maybe you will show. You can see in the next slide. We had first something like 1,500 records of this kind of scientific literature. Then we had a filter with 501 records by abstract, and then we controlled better inside the abstract that the topics were valid for our kind of work, and we arrived to 55 articles and working paper that were on which we made the analysis. The report is based on this 55 records we found. Let me go to the second step of our project, which was a stakeholder interview report. What we have done was that to look at sport inclusive practices through stakeholders' experience. The report focuses on the main issues that practitioners and scholars dealing with refugees and migrants social inclusion practices are facing in the 6 countries. As you can see here, we have some of the issues that were that we asked to the stakeholders and which were the base of our analysis inside the report. First of all, the social, economic, and political context in which migration takes place. Migrations at the moment in Europe. Then we also analyze the organizational factors in inclusive sport programs, which is networking, funding, and sustainability. We are speaking about the organization sustainability during time. Okay. Then the role of coaches and other professionals inside this kind of inclusive programs. And finally, the impact of sport practices on migrants, refugees integration. This is very important. The last issue was, okay, but what kind of results does sport produce in the integration processes of these migrants into society? We can go to the next one. Thank you. Thank you, Simone. This is you can see you cannot see it very well, but is all the stakeholders which were interviewed in our the second piece of research, and they had an adequate mix of expertise and local knowledge. Okay, because we are carrying, as I said at the beginning, a project inside critical areas. So critical areas are our setting. So we wanted to speak with people that had knowledge on these critical areas. We made 18 interviews. And I want to thank even David Ekholm and Thomas Farines, which are present today and which will participate to a round table after our presentation, and they were very generous and very skillful in during the interviews, and I want to thank them. So we can go maybe to the next slide. So this second kind of research was an exploratory research design. Social inclusion through sport is not a self-evident topic, so we use a qualitative methodology. We adopted this kind of methodology, which is particularly effective when we observe complex and unexplored social dynamics rather than verifying pre-established hypotheses. Okay. Respondents have been encouraged to express opinions and reconstruct their experience, proposing them projective questions, okay, using a non-directive interview technique. In practical terms, we submitted a range of topics to key informants, leaving them free to develop arguments as they wish, giving the chance to highlight new issues which we had not taken into account maybe in our interview guide. And it was very interesting that a very rich kind of empirical evidence was collected with this kind of approach, which was a projective approach, a qualitative approach. Okay, we wanted to make problems and issues emerge from this kind of interaction. Okay, we can go to the next, I think. Thank you very much, Simone. I'm sorry that. So let me maybe the one before. Thank you. The next one. Before I leave the floor to Luca, I want to talk about the context, which is important, which is, I think, the framework for the empirical evidences that Luca and Michele will discuss after me. Migrations have come to be a very divisive topic in the European Union at the moment. We had the intertwining of three economic crises we already know: subprimes, the austerity debt crisis, and after this pandemics in Europe. And this kind of crisis came together with an humanitarian emergencies coming from the Middle East. We know about Syria, for instance, and this has made very problematic to integrate refugees coming from these countries in this kind of period. This because in the European middle and popular classes, we had the spread of of feeling of hostility, okay, against this kind of migration. And so, why? Because middle and popular classes were feeling that their condition was worsening, okay, and they were uncertain for their future. In such a polarized opinion climate, growing consensus have been registered by neo-populist and sovereignist parties. We cannot ignore this kind of context while we analyze inclusive practices, because this affects in somehow the work of practitioners and also of scholars conducting research in this field. So I think I finished, and I would like to leave the floor, if you agree, Simone, to Luca, which will speak about the bibliographical analysis.
Thank you very much, Cristiano. Yes, Luca, if you want, you can start, and maybe we can keep some questions and comments at the end of your presentation. If you want, I can help you, or as you prefer. If you want to share your screen, or we can continue with mine. I have to put your mic on.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
we can continue.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
So
I will try to summarize a bit the report on the bibliographical review. So Cristiano already introduced what it's all about. It is Simcast's first research output, and the main objective was to have a preliminary understanding of the scientific debate on the topic of sport for social inclusion. So our main questions were, does sport mitigate social inequalities, and to what extent sport can contribute to social inclusion? We know that psychophysical well-being is a relevant policy goal in Western democracy, especially for the integration of ethnic minorities, and even more for those communities that are in disadvantaged conditions, such as segregated neighborhoods or refugees camps and so on. Can go on, Simone? Sorry. You can. Okay. So about the main findings, what we know, and there is a great deal of evidence about this effect, is that sport has significant psychological and effects on well-being and health. So, and this is particularly true for those groups we are studying for Simcast intervention. So, but this is an acquisition that is quite a consolidated acquisition in the field, in the scientific field. So we are more interested in the social and cultural effects of the sport practice. And so this is, we would see, a bit more complicated to establish and to prove. But we do know that sport can contribute to the development of life, social, and emotional skills, which can, in the end, contribute to a deeper inclusion of people in society. Also, sport can become an habitus, so a way of living, so to speak, something that is extremely meaningful in one person's life, and that can contribute to the persona character development. So, and also in terms of trust and emotional commitment, that is a required condition for sports and games in general. These are skills and way of interacting that are particularly useful for a group of people that have been disrooted from their home country. You can go on. So regarding the social and cultural effects, so how sports can contribute to a community. First of all, there is evidence about sport overcoming isolation. So because it is a moment, a context where to form meaningful bonds that otherwise would have not formed. So it can contribute to develop a feeling of belonging to a group, a place, or a community. And a specific stream of research has focused on the potential of sport to contribute to bonding and bridging social capital. That is, that the kind of resources that connect a group together, that is bonding social capital, and social resources that instead help linking together different communities within a society. So it's about the opportunities a person has to interact with similar people or different people. So sport can help bridge communities, but also develop a sense of community in a specific place, in a local context. And for these reasons, the next slide, thank you. For these reasons, researchers have also focused on the potential of sport to be a means for acculturation, that is a way to get in contact with the host society heritage and linguistic codes and customs and so on. So migrants and refugees can interact with foreign, that is our cultures, that for them are foreign. And so sport is a place where intercultural dialogue can develop. At the same time, as we have seen, since it can overcome isolation and fight disaggregation in a community, it encourages civic engagement, and for this reason can also be a moderator of antisocial behavior, because it connects with the broader social life and its rules and its way of living. Thank you, Simone. We can continue. And last, okay, the last issues that were discussed and that we found in our review were they were something that was not so clearly discussed, but it was particularly relevant. Mainly, sport can be a way to rebuild social networks that have been disrupted by migration. So it is an occasion to bring together similar people from similar origins, and for this reason, it can help reenact migrant-specific cultural capitals. Take, for instance, national sports that cannot be practiced in a foreign country. Sport programs can offer a ground to, for instance, cricket for Indian people. There are a lot of examples in Italy about this kind of initiatives. So it's a place where migrant and ethnic minorities can rebuild a piece of their society, cultural life. At the same time, that is particularly and politically relevant finding. Sport programs can help develop ties with grassroots organization and civil society association, and because of that, marginal people can, after that, get in contact with society's other institutions or expand their field of opportunities and maybe find a job or a better housing condition and so on. So sport programs are also a way to get in contact with society institutions. This is particularly relevant. Of course, there are a series of issues, as you can see in the next slide. Thank you. Because what I've been saying so far has not gone uncontested. So there are doubts about the empirical evidence regarding this argument. So first of all, many scholars discussed about marginalized population and migrants in general have more pressing concern than sport. That is, material needs, employment, education, housing, and so on. So recreational activities and thus sport can become to an extent a secondary concern, and so their engagement can be hindered considerably. And this is a quite relevant issue. At the same time, the role of professional, which is clearly very important, is seldom addressed. So it is discussed, but not so deep. And this is a field of research that needs advancement, because professionals are particularly important in creating the right environment for people to engage with others in sport activities. At the same time, this is the most critical issue, is that structural disadvantage cannot be tackled down by sports. There needs to be other type of social intervention, and sport programs can only mitigate and moderate the negative effects of disadvantage and marginalization. So it has to be complemented with other policy initiatives. And I think there are a few more points in the next slides, and then a few more critical issues. Okay, yes. And lastly, some others researchers have discussed how sports is useful, has a lot of benefits, but there can happen negative encounters. For example, intercultural conflicts or conflictual events between participants and professionals and trainers. So it is not a neutral field, but it is complicated to see, and it is complicated to see sports as only a positive activity, because it has some issues that are often put in the shadow. And lastly, the outcomes in terms of social inclusion are difficult to assess. So we are speaking not by experience, but by our ideals, our political views regarding the role of sport for social inclusion. This is important to remember. At the same time, it does not negate the benefits of sport, but it is important to give the right dimension to sport programs. So that was all. Of course, the literature review focusing only on the scientific debate is very, very limited, because there are few researchers that are always also professional, that are also active in the field of sports, so they don't have first-hand information, data about what is happening. So for these reasons, we decided to conduct a series of interviews. Michele will speak about them in a moment, and after that we are going to implement the collection of best practices that is more focused on what really happens. So this was just a general overview of the scientific debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. I guess now it's time of Michele, if I'm not wrong, to present the second part of the results. So again, if you agree, then we can make some comments also at the end of Michele's presentation. So Michele, the floor is yours. If you want, we can continue with this system. It's a little bit difficult for me to get how many animation you have for slides, but you know, it's a kind of challenge.
It works well. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
The floor
Just
is
one
yours.
thing before I start. Can you hear me right and well? Because this microphone is not. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. As Lucas said, I'm going to introduce the second Simcast second research output, which is the report the analysis we made based on stakeholders interviews. So I will go quite quickly on these points, because as Christian already said, we interviewed 18 researchers and practitioners, professional experts like social workers, psychologists, coaches, throughout all 6 partners countries. So the 6 countries involved in the project. That's because, as Luca stated before, we wanted to have a first-hand information and knowledge about these processes, about how the social inclusion programs based on sport activities actually work. So can you click another time, please? Because we have 2 research questions. Thank you. So yes, of course, our first problem, the first thing we wanted to see, to understand, was what are the main problems and solutions adopted in practice. And besides, we also wanted to compare the knowledge of professionals and people working in the field with scientific knowledge, which we try to let's say we try to synthesize in our scientific literature review. So what did they told us? What did they which issues did the stakeholders underlined? Of course, many of the issues overlapped with those identified during their scientific review, the bibliographic review. So, of course, the socioeconomic context in which migratory flows take shape is very important. The policy measures adopted at the national and local level to promote inclusion and integration of migrants and refugees is also very relevant, very crucial. Also, the significance and the differences in the significance of sport practices in integration processes. Also, at the organizational level, we underlined throughout the interviews the importance of networking, funding, and sustainability. So the cooperation between organizations which work for the inclusion of migrants using sport as a means. And as we will see, also the role of professional coaches emerged clearly by the interviews. And of course, what I think it's the most interesting outcome of these interviews was a critical reflection about the role of sport in social inclusion processes. You can go on, please. Yeah, thank you. Christian already speak about that, but I will just recall some of the main events which characterized the last years. So since 2014, and particularly in 2015, with the humanitarian crisis, as has been called, the exodus of refugees coming, especially from Syria, but also other Middle Eastern countries, became a central issue in EU countries' political agendas, and also in the EU political agenda. We try to, what emerged by the interviews is the impact of that crisis, of that, let's say, big flow of migration which Europe experienced in the last 5 years, which lead to great investments by the states and great public and media attention. Also, we distinguished during the interviews, as you can imagine, we did the partner countries were mixed, let's say like that, in first arrival countries, which we can grossly separate from final destination countries, which are the those in the northern Europe. So to say, the first arrival countries, maybe Greece, Spain, and Italy, like the Mediterranean area, which are the most geographically near to Middle Eastern countries and sub-Saharan countries, which are the most important, let's say, starting points for migrants. And we evidenced it. We identified a clear difference between these countries and Northern Europe countries like Denmark, Germany, Scandinavian countries in general, but also Slovenia had a particular role, a particular situation, because their migration is not a great issue like in other Southern and Eastern Europe countries. You can go on. Yeah. So, what has been one of the first themes we identified was the social-spatial dimension of inclusion. What do we mean by that? We do mean that doing sport activities to promote social inclusion of migrants and refugees is something context-specific. So we interviewed, of course, professionals working in different contexts, so prisons, refugee camps, disadvantaged neighborhoods, so urban suburbs or peripheries, and shelters, like in Germany, in Berlin, which, of course, are very different contexts. Some of them are something similar to what Erving Goffman called the total institutions. So, of course, in prisons, there are a set of institutional rules and conditions which limit personal freedom and, of course, even movement. So, while doing a physical activity, okay, like sports, in prisons or refugee camps, where the freedom of movement itself is limited, of course, we should consider it as a real complex issues. We cannot just go there and do some sport, because, as Lucas said before, this can lead also to negative outcomes. So what is important is always look at the context, at the social, at the spatial context, and to the relations and interaction that take place in that specific context. Yeah, so while dealing with projects, with sport projects, which aims to address, which address migrants and refugees in these conditions, this dimension is really important, and project activities should be thought of as flexible and adaptive to that context. So we cannot just practitioners and professionals cannot just think of activities before going into the context. They should be able to adapt what they thought of before to the specific condition they find, and which they cannot preview. So inclusion clearly appears in this context of research like as a social material process. So something that is relative and takes place in space and time. So of course, when we are talking about including, I don't know, refugees living in a refugee camp in the social context in which they live, we should be able to think about what does it mean to include them, because they are in a temporary living condition. They probably will go on and we go living in another context. So what are we doing for them in that precise moment and in that specific condition? That's a really interesting question, which we will try to further analyze during the third step of research, the case studies. Can go on, please. So, okay. As I introduced before, while setting up a support program for social inclusion, three main problems should be taken care of. So networking. No one can do it alone. A sport association which aims at promoting social inclusion for migrants should always start from networking, building networks and relationships with other organizations, with public institutions, foundations, and so on. Networking is a really important resource because it can give organizations, civil organizations, to build, of course, to have access to context-related knowledge, human resources, for example. It can having a network of organizations working on the same project can guarantee civil society participation, so the involvement of local communities, which is very important for the success of these programs. Of course, there are many other benefits the stakeholders underlined, like organizational learning. So associations and different organizations can learn from each other and copy also the best practices that they learn. And of course, they can build institutional relationships, because having a strong network of association can build accountability in the light of public policies, for example. So while asking funds from public institutions, it's better to be a strong network with different professional figures and skills and experiences. So most of the projects we the stakeholders talked about are already funded, already financial supported. So that's interesting because we didn't find a clue about how to obtain funding starting from zero. So this is a good question for newcomers, organizations that want to start doing social inclusion programs for migrants. Because the main sources we found to be employed were international foundations and international funds like European funds or public policy funds at the local and national level. Another slightly different concept is sustainability, because it is not only a matter of financing. Sustainability is also a matter of making the project effective and ensure that the positive effects which wants to be accomplished are durable. Many of the sport programs we analyzed are of short or medium duration, so starting from 1 year till maybe 3 years. And of course, as Luca said before, sport can make a difference, but it is also difficult to assess how. So one thing which should be considered is sustainability of the project's outcomes and positive effects. So more than trying to perpetuate, let's say, going on, which is not common and not easy. One should try to build and enact positive processes that are autonomous from the project, and that can guarantee sustainability. You can go on, please. Okay, so I will go on this because Luca already told us how sport can how participants can benefit, especially when they're coming from traumatic experiences, like it's often the case for migrants and refugees, because many people, not all of course, but many people escape from war and difficult life conditions and undergone difficult experiences. So the stakeholders identified, let's say, the same benefits which are already present in the scientific literature. So the educational potential of sport, which is of course a critical issue, because one should consider that sport can even educate to negative values, to antisocial values, if not addressed properly. So we will go on talking about the pedagogical dimension of sport activities. Physical activity can contribute to can make it easier for people who find them in a new country and context to communicate with others and interact with others. And sport, of course, as a cultural activity, as Luca said before, is a way to enact one's culture and to get familiar with a new culture. You can go on, please. Okay.
Michele,
So
sorry, if you can try to conclude, because we are a little bit behind the schedule. So yeah, you still have time. Just try to conclude. Thank you.
Yeah. I just two more things to say, but I will go brief. So being a coach, one theme that emerged very clearly is the relevance of the coach in this kind of projects. So especially for children, we are always talking about migrants, second or first generation, and refugees. As Tina Nobis, professor of sociology of sport at the University of Humboldt, Berlin, told us, many studies show that children, when children are asked who is the most important figure for them, they answer, my coach. So in the case of migrants, children and refugee children, the coach is not just someone that makes them play, but it is effective and a crucial figure, like their parents, for example. It's an example for them, and it's a source of even authority and educational relationship. Not only a technician, in these projects, the coach, the ideal coach that emerged by the conversation with stakeholders is a multifaceted professional, someone that is that has educational, pedagogical, psychological skills, but even cultural sensitivity and open-mindedness. Another characteristics, of course, is empathy. So the ability to be in somebody else's shoes, and also the ability to perform different roles according to the context. So we saw that in prisons, for example, it is necessary that coaches are charismatic and even authoritative in some situations, because if not, they will lose, let's say, grip on the participants. While working with young people in difficult contexts, one should be more understanding and more sensitive and more able to listen to the experiences and the necessities of people, young people. So I will just go on to the next, to the last slide. Please, Simone. I think we've lost Simone. Yeah. No problem. I try to share my screen. Let's try.
Don't worry, Michele. Don't worry, Michele. I think we are on the screen. We are broadcasting.
Oh yeah.
So you can go on.
Okay, sorry. I didn't see it.
Sorry, perhaps you missed the presentation. I will share it again. Yeah, sorry. The weather here is horrible.
Okay, that's no problem. So the last thing I wanted to say was the limited effects of sport. Even by the interviews, we identified that sport activities are and the positive issues positive outcomes, in terms of social inclusion, are always context related and may also be negative if not properly addressed. That sport is a leisure activity, by the way, which cannot be used as a panacea, a general solution for all kinds of structural problems like unemployment, living conditions like housing, etc. It can improve, of course, the quality of life of participants, their mental health, their relationships, their self-esteem, and so on. But we should rewrite the role of sport programs more and think them more as social platforms. So the good context, a good situation for promoting positive social processes, and a starting point, let's say like that. Sport as something that enables other positive social processes. So something that enables the possibility for inclusion. But finally, the need for an integrated policy approach to the social inclusion of migrants and refugees is necessary. By that we mean that sport can do much more if integrated with other activities that promote the inclusion of migrants. So employment policies, educational policies, and we should think of it as maybe David Ekholm will say us later as a question, as a matter of social justice and equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michele. And also thank you to Cristiano and Luca for this inspiring presentation and for all the information that have been provided about the project and about the main outcomes of the project. We are a little bit behind of the schedule, just 18 minutes, 20 minutes behind. So if you agree, I can invite already David Ekholm and Thomas Farinas, because I can see them in the waiting room. So I can put them on the screen in this virtual floor. If you want, I can invite them on this virtual floor, and we can start our round table. Maybe I will ask Luca, Michele, Cristiano to remain with us, and we will try to have a kind of interaction between the two parts, because I think there are very interesting very interesting inputs from your presentation. So let me try to add David. Here we are. Hello, David. And then I will try also to add Thomas. Here we are. Hello, Thomas. Welcome. So we are all together here in this virtual room. Apologize for my technical problem, but the weather here in Frosinone, Italy, is really bad at the moment. It's raining, and so sometimes there are some troubles with the connection, but don't worry. If you see me leaving, it just can continue. So no problem, we are completely independent. And then I will try to get back. So David, Thomas, welcome. Maybe if you want, if you can present yourself quickly, and because we know you, but perhaps people from home, they want to know a little bit more about you, about your experience, about your expertise, and then we can start with the round table. Thank you very much. Maybe David, you want to start, and then Thomas, just as you prefer.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay, so and thank you first of all to Cristiano, Luca, and Michele for this interesting presentation. I really enjoyed, and it seemed to grasp the complexity of sport and integration. My name is David Ekholm. I'm a senior lecturer and researcher in Linköping University in Norrköping in Sweden. So I'm a lecturer in the studies of social work, or the sociology of social work. So I'm a social scientist in a sense. I research mainly the variety of welfare institutions and services on the local level, and for instance, sport-based initiatives conducted in cross-sector cooperation between civil society and municipalities and the state organizations, mainly focusing on integration and social inclusion on the local level, and the concerns of migration and poverty or socioeconomic challenges. So I guess that's a bit of presentation from my side. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And then we have Thomas with us. Thomas, if you want to briefly present yourself.
Let me unmute myself, first of all. I always do that. It's a classic. My name is Thomas. As it said, I worked in the past between England, France, and Greece in social inclusion through sports. My last job before coming to the one I am now, which was in Greece. This is why I participated in this project. Worked for Terre des Hommes Hellas as their sports for protection consultant. Now, currently, I'm working in Football Mass, a Chilean organization that works in 8 different countries, including France, which is where I am based now. And I'd say that my role has been always to always be the coach. I've always been mostly the coach and the project lead. So I've had a lot of interaction with a lot of people, and continue to have a lot of interaction, especially with the people I've worked in the past. So yeah, look forward, and thank you for presenting the results. Even though there were some technical issues, I think that my internet as well is a bit bad. I'm in the village, so I hope you understand that I might have some issues as well.
Don't worry, Thomas, and thank you very much for presenting yourself. Yes, it's something new for everyone. I mean, this kind of new situation in which there are this technical problem, technical issue now are a little bit common, but it seems that everything is working very well. If you agree, maybe we can ask with David. We can start with David. And David, I really would like to hear your opinion about some of the insight coming from the presentation. And also, maybe if you agree, I would like to share with you one of the comments coming from the people who are following our presentation, our streaming. And there was a focus on the competence and the skills of those who work in the sports sector as a key elements for the effectiveness of such a kind of project. What do you think about this issue?
Yes, thank you for the question. That's I think that's also a complex question, of course, and also an important question. If you go back to the presentation, there were some concerns about the theories of the programs of inclusion. Do the programs generally have sort of a rationality or an idea between what are the activities conducted and what are the objectives estimated from the activities? So you need to have sort of a clear rationale in the first place between what you do and what you expect from them. So if you have that, then you also need to have leaders or coaches or persons conducting the interventions or programs or whatever you call the activities that can follow this line of rationality. So that's a basic starting point, I think. And so who is competent and who has the skills to conduct such activities? Okay, of course there could be many people doing that. I don't mean to say that they need to be highly qualified social workers or professional welfare workers. They could be representatives from the local level, civil society organizations, community organizations, or municipal organizations. This varies a lot, of course, because we have such different systems of providing welfare between Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and Scandinavia. So you cannot say generally who is a competent or skilled leader or coach of such an intervention. But in any case, I think it's important to integrate education for the coaches, managers, leaders, professionals, in order to follow a clear rationality of the programs. In a sense, that might be a formalization of the interventions or a professionalization of the program. I don't know, but it's I believe it's important. I think I have support from the research field that integrating also training for the coaches in order to follow a clear rationality of the program is an important feat of conducting such social services or social interventions in general.
Thank you very much, David. Very, very, very interesting. And you are an expert in welfare policy, if I'm not wrong. And and also you live in a country in which the welfare strategy, are considered at the best level, if you want. Some of the most innovative strategies are implemented in Sweden and in the Scandinavian country. From your point of view, do you really believe that sport organizations can have a part in the welfare policy, and of course in the policy that are implemented for the integration of migrants? And if yes, what kind of part they can play?
Based on the premises, I would stress that of course the welfare systems look different, and perhaps in many aspects there is an innovative climate in the welfare policy in Scandinavia in general. So but first of all, I don't want to be very Scandinavian context specific, but there is a general trend in the welfare policy to sort of utilize or use the civil society organizations, voluntary organizations, much more in the provision of welfare services during the last at least 2 or 3 decades. So this has placed the sport organizations in the eye of the government, in a sense. So expectations are put on the sports movement and on the voluntary sector in that sense to contribute with working with integration and social inclusion with migrants specifically. And I think there are things that the voluntary sector and the sport movement can do in that sense, because like we've heard in the presentation, they can facilitate networks and meetings and a range of positive social and socio-psychological effects. But I think at the same time it is important not to overestimate the contributions they can make, because we also have like the school education system and the social services in general can also provide such things as networks, meeting places and stuff, and the sport activities cannot replace questions of school education or social services, and in particular not for migrants and people of a migrant background. So it is in that sense I want to perhaps reconnect to Michele's point that I was going to talk about the social justice and social equality and social rights, perhaps, because I think we also need to see that an active and meaningful leisure time and access to sport practices should also be considered from the point of view of social justice, equality, and rights, even for migrants, just as like most young people have some sort of access to sport activities. is not only important because it can facilitate integration or any other social objectives. It's important in itself because young people want to do sport.
Thank you very much, David. Stay there because we have many other questions for you. Now, I would like to also to involve Thomas, and because Thomas, you work with Football Mass, that is an innovative organization. You know, I remember when I was a student, Football Mass was one of my key study of the PhD thesis. So I really like Football Mass approach and the activities that I'm. So you have a point of view from the field, if you want. And it will be very nice to learn from you which are the key elements or the key issue for such a kind of project, the key elements that you must have to be really effective.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Before I answer the question, I have to ask you: is the PhD available in English? If it is, can I read? I'd be very interested to have a look at that.
Yeah, unfortunately, no, it was in Italian. Even though I was a PhD student in Strasbourg, but then I had the double degree in France and in Italy. So based on our legislation, our rules, and I had to do the PhD in Italian. But maybe whenever you want, we can have some exchange. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I think that this something that should be key for everyone when thinking about starting a project, and it might seem a bit evident, but and you've touched upon a couple of points during the presentation, is really to know what the people want, like the people that you're working with. I think that's a common mistake, to try to do whatever you think is the right thing, and this unfortunately happens a lot across Europe, but also across the world. This is a problem that a lot of NGOs have, to think they know better. And that would be my central point. We have first to make sure that what we're thinking of doing is really what's needed. Second, I'd say that we have to have interactions with the local communities. Like there's no point in making, for example, I'll give you just an example. There's a project that was proposed to us to work with refugees, people living on the streets, and etc. And I said, yes, this sounds like a perfect project, but if you want to do social inclusion, how are you going to include people by only looking at the peripheries of society? No, you have to make them interact with people that are in the society, already included, and this is a problem. For example, in Thessaloniki, all the projects that I've seen were making the refugees were being put in accommodations close to the outskirts of the city, which means that on the outskirts of the city would only be migrants that were not necessarily included into the Greek society, not really inside. There were not many interactions with Greek people, and it's the same in France. When you see the way that Paris is made, most camps or accommodations, they are on the outskirts, and they have very little interaction with what's outside of their situation or what is not already included. So our role as organizations, our role as sports coaches, is to create those links. So again, another example, what we would do in Thessaloniki with Terre des Hommes was to not train them and become a club ourselves. I think that the most powerful thing is not to have a team of refugees, a team of migrants, is to have a team. What do I mean by that? I'm not saying that the ones that are migrant clubs are less good or less important. No, they're important as well. They show a visibility. But for me, personally, I believe that the way of making social inclusion and integration work is to, of course, train them, make them achieve a certain level of well-being, mental, physical, etc., and then introduce them to local clubs. We go back to the biggest issue is without papers, these players cannot play. So then we have to push our federations and into opening spaces. And we have case studies. For example, one very good case study is the Royal Belgium Federation that I always name because, frankly, I'm a bit jealous. They have access for refugee players, not only to play in the local clubs, amateur clubs, but also access for them to learn how to become coaches and referees. And I think as well that not everybody can become a football player. I didn't become one. I wasn't good enough, let's be honest. It was not because of an injury, but I know that provided with the opportunity, I can become a good coach. And I know that others can do the same. So why not pushing not only the active participation in the pitch? So yes, they practice the sport, but why not creating opportunities as well for people to learn? And this is what we did with Terre des Hommes in Greece. We coached coaches, 16 of them, and if you want, I can go into more details about that. But this is pretty much what we've done last year, so that the project remains even after I left. Unfortunately, COVID came.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I have another question for you. Maybe it's a tricky question, but I would like to hear your opinion. Maybe also David, if you have an opinion on that. I was reflecting about the role of football mass and about the role of many other sport organizations. They work on the field. They have a direct contact with migrants. They try to implement activities that try to foster the integration of such a kind of groups, and they have a clear understanding of what is happening, and they are key actors on the field. But then my impression, maybe I'm wrong, I just would like to know your opinion, is that despite this important work that they have on the field, then sport organization they have a limited influence on the agenda of the governments. So they cannot impact the policy, if you want. So they stay on the field, they do a great job on the field, but then when you have to discuss about the agenda, when you have to discuss about the general strategy, it seems that they have a limited influence. But maybe just my opinion. What would like to hear your opinion, Thomas, and then David, if you want to add something.
Frankly, this is a problem that goes to. It's interesting. I'm just reading a book about NGOs working in NGOs, and it's a valid point what you're saying, because we're not invited to the table often. And if you've seen the organizations that have won the new call, the European Sport for Integration of Refugees, it's only bigger. The majority are big federations or big NGOs that have a huge network, and there's a lack of opportunity for smaller NGOs. But also, I feel that because NGOs start to replace the places where the state is failing, the state should also give a space for these NGOs to discuss the future and the way that things goes. But the way that we work is that we apply for funds that are specific for one little thing. And if what we want to do goes a little bit out of the box, we're not allowed to do that. We have to justify every single penny. I'm not saying that we should stop justifying every single penny we use. What I'm saying is that I believe that we should be asked as well, because we're the ones working on the field, but also given the opportunity of be more inclusive in our use of the finances. And also, and this is a very important thing that I've discovered, that most of the projects at the European level, it's a salary problem as well, because we've been told off a couple of times that we were putting too much money on the salaries and not enough on the project delivery. But what really costs is to maintain people with a good salary so that they can do their job properly. And if the European Union and other funders don't respect that, we are not able to do. I'm going to give you my example. We're in an organization, we have 3 projects, and at the moment, because people have left for better jobs, I have to do 2 jobs, and this is my case, but it's the case of several other NGOs. And I'm not here complaining about this. These things happens, but we have to also have a say in that. The funders should not control. Like they should understand that having it. I'm not asking for 5,000 euros a month. I'm asking for the living wage for the people that work with me, so that they can live without the stress of paying their bills and they can do their job properly. So there's a lot of congruent things that in this field that we don't have enough space really to discuss these things.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And David, do you have an opinion on that? And
yeah, absolutely. I think at least in relation to what Thomas said here, I absolutely agree, and it's the same thing, but perhaps in a different context in many of the projects that I have studied, because you need to first of all, you need to allocate resources in a sense in order to have sustainability. And how do you allocate these kind of resources? You get invited in dialogues with funders, even if it's from the European Union or from the municipal level or from the state level or regional level. It depends, but in order to engage in dialogues and in order to allocate resources, you need also have the competences in the organization and in your networks to have these kind of dialogues. And that put the issue in what kind of competences and skills can be mobilized in the organizers and networks. Okay, so you need to work with the young people, with the migrants, so you need to have sort of educational skills or skills in the social pedagogy of integration. But you need also to have the organizational skills, how to maneuver in relation to suppliers and funders, in relation to governments, and that is tricky questions. If one of the projects that I've studied that have seemed to be quite successful in respect to integration, I think, is they have managed to mobilize people with a background in political science and with organizational skills, so they know how to talk with the government, they know how to talk with the municipalities, and that makes everything very much easy. So like some projects are in a sense lucky, and some projects are unlucky not to have these kind of people, but it also places the importance of particular certain people with specific resources and specific competences. So in that sense, I might have something to add, but my addition was with respect to Thomas' comment, which I totally agree upon.
Thank you very much, David. Of course, Michele, Luca, and Cristiano, if you want to add something also based on the experience of the project, feel free to join the discussion. You are officially part of the round table. I have another, if you want, big question, and for both for David and Thomas, and also for the other guest, if you want. I was trying to think about the future, if you want. And even though it's a little bit difficult, and thinking about the future of Europe, and how the policy concerning migration will change in the next future. I know that is a little bit difficult, but I'd like to hear your opinion, trying to anticipate a little bit how the future will look like, because of course they have an influence then on the strategy that are adopted at grassroots level. And what you think, how will be the future for what concerns the policy in migration in Europe? What we can expect? David, Thomas, feel free to maybe David, if you want to start.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite hear you right. But oh yeah, that's a complex question again, of course, but even more complex than the other. So first of all, again, I don't want to overemphasize the differences between different parts of Europe, but in this question, okay, so we face a lot of different situations with respect to migration, because migrants in Scandinavia don't come here as a first country. So the Scandinavian and Northern European countries the last years have in a sense closed the borders, to be frank, and that is an easy way of sort of solving a policy problem, because if you don't if no migrants come into Scandinavian countries, or at least very few in relation to what has been before, then that's a solution. It's not a solution for the migration problem or for migrants, but it's a convenient solution for social policy. And the fear or threat perhaps is that European countries and the European Union take on this kind of policy in a broader sense, not to close the borders to countries outside of Europe, and that will create massive problems, and even is currently creating massive problems for the countries in Southern and Eastern Europe. But I know we have a lot of better experts to talk about the situation in Italy and Greece and Malta and so I leave it to you, I think.
Yeah, Thomas, you have a direct experience, so.
Well, first of all, I might sound a bit like an activist or angry, but the truth is, Europe in general has to start taking responsibility of what they've created in the past. It's a movement. If you study the education in all these countries, if we study the exploitation of people in all these countries, we have, as European countries, some of us are doing it at a good level, some of us are doing it at a terrible level, and some of us are not doing it at all. We have to take the responsibility and stop letting countries like Greece, Italy, and Malta be overflown by the migrants, and opening the paths so that these people can live in fair places. After all, we're a continent that always goes on about talking about democracy, about human rights. And if we take the case, for example, of Lesbos, in which it's a camp that doesn't look at all like Europe. It's been going on for at least 5 long years, and now after the camp was burned to the ground, we still see a slow response from Europe. There are kids, unaccompanied minors, there are adults, there are families, These people deserve to live in a better place. That, I think, is key. Will Europe take responsibility on these people and work towards an inclusion? I feel sometimes that Europe, by giving us some pots of money towards working with social inclusion, it just wants to go and say, look, we're doing this. We have this toolkit. We have this projects doing this. We've spent money on this, whilst we all know that it's not enough. We have to push for concrete resolution at European level, nation level, region level, local level. And I honestly, now talking a bit as a foreigner, as a Brazilian coming to Europe, I thought that Europe stood for solidarity. The creation of the Union was of the solidarity of the people. I don't think this is happening at the moment, and I feel that this is something that we have to push. And it's great to see that you have 6 countries working together in a project like this. But it's still a small, very small level. It's not a policy level, and we all know, we've seen throughout the research, and we've understood by going to different countries as well. In my case, I haven't participated besides the interview, but we know that what works in Italy might not work in Greece and might not work in Germany. But on the other hand, we do know that there's a common ground, which is there's a shared experience of the people we work with. There's a need for certain things that doesn't change, which is papers, a home, a job, opportunities to get new education, opportunities to practice sports, opportunities to practice music or other arts as well. I think that it's very important that projects like this also push back and try to make change happen. It's difficult, but I think that we all believe that change is possible. If not, we would not be working in this field.
Thank you, Thomas. Time is running. We are almost close to the end of this roundtable, unfortunately. But if you allow me, I would like to raise the very last question that actually is not a real question. I would like to take advantage from you, David and Thomas, based on your experience. And there are several sport organizations that are following our project, and they are following also this presentation. If you would like to share some key points, key advice, if you want, to this sport organization that are today involved in project activities that try to use the sport to integrate migrants, what will be your advice? And maybe David, you can start if you want.
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to reconnect to what Thomas said before. I think first of all, we need to have some sort of the right expectations of what sport can do. We can talk about the potential of sport, and it is there. When you have a program theory or a rationality of the intervention, of course, these are important things. But if we don't look into the sort of material, institutional, political, organizational context where this sort of sport for integration takes place, then we're not gonna sort of have the right expectations on the potential of sport. So, and that is a complex question, complex thing to say, because it doesn't help the practitioners to say, okay, have the right expectations on sport, because it's happening in the context of migration flows and migration crisis and social and economic inequalities all over Europe. So is that a good advice for a practitioner? I don't know, but it's from my point of view, I think it's the best concluding remark that can be made. We need to to work with the programs and to sort of professionalize and formalize the interventions, but we at the same time need to have the right expectations. They are conducted in an environment that creates the premises of the interventions. So perhaps it wasn't the best advice to practitioners, but yeah, I think that was
perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. And Thomas,
well,
your
for me,
advice.
If I have one advice, my would be to listen to the people. Don't listen to yourself, listen to the people, and try to talk with them. We all know it can be difficult, but there's tools. I can tell you, I've had to translate with Google Translate on the phone during a football session because communication wasn't possible. And I think that we have different types of tools that can be used in this scenario. Always, like when I start a session, I always ask what languages do you speak? Communication is key to actually do a good project. And I will allow myself as well, going back on what David says about the role of sports. Approach projects in a holistic way. When we're working with sports for development, we're not only working with the sports aspect of it. Try to remember that through football, through cricket, through basketball, you can also teach things. A good example of that, and I'm going to make some propaganda for my previous organization, is the Sports for Protection Toolkit of Terre des Hommes. It's a very good base to what if an organization wants to start implementing projects with sports. And also, I can also be available to go through these type of toolkits, because I've worked on an adaptation to the case of Greece, which was my project last year. So try to include other areas of social society as well, and listen to the people always.
Thank you very much, Thomas. This is very inspiring. I hope that they will follow your advice, because it's probably a crucial element. I think it's time to close this very interesting seminar. Unfortunately, I want to thank you, all of you, Cristiano, Luca, Michele, David, and Thomas, for your inspiring words, and also for sharing your knowledge with us. And also a big thank you to Damiano Lembo and US Agli for hosting us. And I think it was very, very interesting. I hope we will have the chance again to continue with this discussion, because it's really crucial for the future of the sport organization who operate in this sector. Please let me give a big thank you also to my students of the University of Cassino and Stato Lazio who are attending this seminar. Was probably the first time for them to attend such a kind of seminar, so it was quite an interesting experience. I hope so. So thank you very much to them for the participation. You can see here, and maybe I will put here again the official website of the project. The project will continue, and we will conclude all the activities by the end of the next year. Hopefully, we will see how it goes. So for whoever is interested in our activities, please get in contact with us, and we will reply. What else? I think it's time to say hello. Thank you very much again, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.